Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for your patience, everybody, and welcome to the decision session of the Environment and Infrastructure portfolio for today. For continuity's sake, we weren't able to have this live at the start, so the meetings have been recorded and be uploaded to onto the internet in due course. Can I just remind people you are in charge of your own microphones, and for the benefit of our viewer, I'm Councillor Ken Hawkins, the Cabinet portfolio holder. In attendance are our councillors, the officers and spokesmen for the portfolio. We're advised by officers, and there are some guest speakers and guest councillors at this meeting for the various items. Can I ask if there are any apologies, please, Joseph?
Yes, thank you, Cabinet Member. Councillor Tim Hodson has submitted his apologies, and Councillor Hamilton is substituting on his behalf. Okay,
welcome to Eugene. Welcome to that. And there are some decorations. Are there any declarations of pecuniary or conflicts of interest? We take them as and when. And questions to deputations, Joseph.
Yes, received two requests for deputations, one from a local resident, Mr. Colin Oakey, and one from Councillor Tilsley, and they are both in respect of item 5, School Streets update.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, Joe and Mr. Oakey. As I've explained a little earlier, I'm going to rejig the agenda to take in your item first and allow you to either sit back and watch the rest of the meeting or go and do something else. So I'll deal with item number 5 first, and I've already outlined Mr. Oakey will make his reputation first, followed by Councillor Tilsley. Mr. Oakey, I think you have 3 minutes. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to come to this meeting. Thank you. If you carry on,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll speak on behalf of residents of Granborough Drive and roads off it. We welcome the school's initiatives as it demonstrates that something is being considered for the parking. Numerous council committees have heard passionate testimony from both my fellow residents and our ward councillors on the issues of parking and verbal abuse aimed at both residents and indeed your fellow councillors. Shouldn't have moved here if you don't like it. We know where you live, are just two of the nicer comments received, even though St Augustine's was built after the houses and not before. With the granting of any form of planning permission, there is a requirement to provide some degree of parking for those who are employed there and also for those who are attracted to the premises. Now, what would touch would be with Addis Underground parking for shoppers. Parking Standards Guide tends to be ignored when it comes to considering planning for educational facilities. These standards were not even considered when St Augustine's applied to double its size, with just 4 additional parking spaces for staff being proposed and none for visitors. The school's application ignored the impact on others and sought to pass the burden onto local roads and residents. The application was rightfully refused. Yet these establishments are major contributors to traffic congestion, pollution, for causing damage to the highways, footpaths and verges. By the granting of successive planning permission to expand schools, the council has failed its residents by not ensuring the appropriate parking provision or other road facilities for dropping off and picking up children being made available. Granborough Drive and surrounding roads have a unique situation in they are not dealing with one school, but 3, clearly a fact that has been lost on the council in several ways. The scoring chart used for councils for considering TROs does not make allowance for the fact that 3 schools are 3 times as worse as the impact of one school. There are 3 school exits along Whitefields Road, resulting in 3 sets of parents massing in this vicinity at the same time. St Augustine's was relocated from an area that provided ample free parking within the town centre to enable the building of Touchwood. No thought was given to parking provision or pick up and drop off facility for parents of primary school children at the time. The usual picking up time duration is approximately 15 to 20 minutes for a single school. For this location, this morphs into 1 hour 40 minutes from 2 to 4 p.m. due to the stated closing times and parents arriving early to grab pole position on the roads, regardless of what time their child comes out of school, flouting the existing parking restrictions. This results in over 100 cars descending on the air all at one time and remaining there for a substantial amount of time. The NHS has a phrase for it, bed blocking. We now have a new phrase, highway hogging, leading to hazardous parking practices, which in turn restricts traffic flow, exacerbating the problem. The residents clearly see no parking from 2:30 till 4 p.m. as a minimum requirement for School Streets 3. There's 5,270 new homes are planned to be built according to the local plan, of which a proportion of these children will find their way to Whitefield School campus site. Now is the time to correct mistakes of the past and plan for the future by treating the school college campus as a whole rather than as individual components, and provide a centric solution to the parking issues that blight the neighbouring roads. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Colin. Thank you. I'm a resident amongst that. I do know the area. I've been up there and I've seen the issues for myself. I think that the officers will deal with this a bit later. So if you wish to stay on for the rest of the report, officers, and listen to the discussion, there may be something that we may be able to help you with here. Next, take on Councillor Joe Tilsley. Carry on, please, Joe.
Cabinet Member, thank you for the opportunity of addressing you again this evening. And can I start today by saying that I'm joined by my two St Alphege colleagues, and we are united in saying that something must finally be done in respect of the Granborough Drive issue. I know you've already received very helpful communications from Julian Knight MP and also from Councillor Bob Grinsell in his role as Chairman of the Planning Committee in the Borough, and I'm certainly indebted to both of them for their input. Since 2008, I've appeared in front of all three of the Cabinet members responsible for highways and made the request that something must be done in relation to the real highway and parking concerns in Granborough Drive and the roads leading from it. And I last appeared in front of you in 2019, and since then the situation has continued to worsen. Since then, the planning application in respect of the doubling in size of St Augustine School was refused, quite rightly, on the highway safety concerns. However, just recently, St Peter's were successful in obtaining planning permission to build 2 additional classrooms on their existing site. What impact that will eventually have on future school numbers is anyone's guess. My colleague, Councillor Mrs Sanderson, is currently dealing with a planning application submitted at 66 Whitefields Road, which, as you probably know, is immediately adjacent to St Peter's School. And that involves the demolition of the existing bungalow and the proposed building of a block of apartments with 8 flats. Again, we can only speculate what impact that might have should planning permission be granted at that site as well. One thing is certain, it will not improve the already chronic traffic conditions. Again, all three of the councillors are indebted to the work led by Paul Tovey and his team, and behind the scenes he has met us with us at the site, he's met with residents, and he's tried manfully to solve this problem. If we could have done, we would have had a much larger residents meeting, and I know he would have attended that as well. And Cabinet Member, I do say this to you, and without any sort of tongue-in-cheek, he's a credit to the council. Thank goodness he's trying to improve the situation. That said, this situation cannot be allowed to go on any longer. Residents are plagued by the current situation in Whitefields Road and Granborough Drive. During school opening and closing time, residents in the various roads see parents using their roads to drop off and collect their children. Those residents daily see the illegal parking, the congestion, the dangerous manoeuvres, the bad behaviour, and they are at the brunt of the anger and resentment of parents. I do accept the point made by residents that they are trapped in their homes during the school opening and closing times, and that the school holidays are a blessed relief. The current parking restrictions do allow parking in these side roads of Whitefields Road, especially at the end of the school day. And it is fair to say that the road is a glorified car park between the hours of 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. That is why today I'm personally really delighted to see the report in front of you, and pages 17 and 18 contain the really important detail. And could I refer to paragraph 512, I'm sure you've got that in front of you, Cabinet Member, and residents will be delighted to see this paragraph, and I quote, "The impact of school-related parking associated with St Augustine's and St Peter's schools has been a concern for the local community over a number of years." I think residents would use slightly stronger language than that, but it's good to see that it's in the officer's report. And paragraph 513 is also really helpful. And again, I quote, "Along with a review of existing restrictions, would aid enforcement and address many of the concerns of the local community." That's really helpful to see that put down in paper at long last. So residents are aware of the proposal. You've heard from Mr. Oakey already, and are prepared to come on board with the expanded school streets programme, with the absolute priority that afternoon parking restrictions must be changed. And residents are very, very clear, Mr. Oakey's already mentioned it, that parking restrictions need to be introduced to stop any parking between 2:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. Monday to Friday in Gramborough Grove and the roads leading from it. And residents take the view that without that specific change, nothing whatsoever will change in their roads. And finally, Cabinet Member, can I just mention the two schools in Whitefields Road that are really dominating this situation, as you know, are both Roman Catholic schools. All the Roman Catholic schools in the borough have formed themselves into an academy trust. We know what that means. That little bit of control that the council once had is now removed. And what I do hope to see is let's see these two schools working collaboratively with the council and the local community to help solve these long-standing problems. It's about time they accepted they've got some responsibility here. So, Cabinet Member, just to finish off, residents are prepared to give the expanded school streets programme the benefit of the doubt. That said, please ensure that it includes the provision of parking restrictions in Gramborough Grove and the roads leading from it from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. Thanks very much for your time and trouble, and greetings from Bermuda. Thank you.
I wonder where you were. Yeah, no. So thanks to you both. Yeah, it goes without saying that. Yeah, look, Gramborough Drive. Look, there are problems around a lot of schools, and it's caused by parents basically. But we know that in a lot of areas, some people have to drive to school because of that amount of catchment. But I'm pleased that Gramborough Drive and the Lawnswood Avenue area is on the agenda, because they are two of our worst ones. But I don't even have to ask Councillor Thomas to mention, because I've seen it for myself outside the Alton schools, the Alton school in Linden, and there I know I've even seen the head teacher outside manning the school crossing patrol, and whilst in the main, most people who drop children off or pick them up behave considerately. We know that there's a lot who don't, and that's a bane on for us, and it's a heck of a lot of problems for the residents who are affected. I think Paul Tovey will be addressing this report, and then Dave Kearney. If officers, you introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If it's okay, I'll take a lead on this one, and then Paul will jump in as needed. Thank you very much for that, Cabinet Member. Also, thank you, Councillor Tilsley and Mr. Oakey. Hopefully, as you would have seen, the report contains some positive and welcome news for you. Just by way of update, the purpose of this report is to provide the Cabinet Member with an update on progress with school streets and to seek approval to progress phase 3 of the programme. Obviously, first introduced in 2017 at 3 sites. It was expanded in 2020 to a further 3, and we're now looking to roll out the third stage. Overall, it's a scheme that is gathering pace nationally. There is a lot of interest in these types of initiatives across the country, because we're not unique in the type of issues that we see around schools in the borough, and the model that we've developed has been utilised at a number of authorities and is being rolled out as we speak at a number of other authorities, which is really positive to see. What the report sets out is that we've engaged widely with our local schools to try and establish where it may be appropriate to roll out the next phase of the programme, funding for which was secured at your February meeting earlier this year. We've carried out a review, which we've set out in Appendix A, of the schools that we've engaged, and based on the lessons learned from the first 2 phases, we really feel that sites with a smaller cul-de-sac type nature, where there is a high level of children living within a 1-mile radius, and where there's strong support from within the school, are locations which naturally suit themselves to the introduction to our traditional school streets type restriction. And therefore, as you'll see within the report itself, we've identified 4 schools, which we would like to take forward as part of phase 3 of the school streets scheme. Those being at Kent's Close, including part of Linden Road, which is Alton Primary, Northland Road, associated with Cranmore Infant School, Woodlands Way, as part of Widney Arbour Primary School, and Kingshurst Way, part of Yorkswood Primary School. Now, the locations and extents of those schemes are indicated in Appendix B, and we are aware that there may be a requirement and need to adjust those based on feedback from ward members and residents, and we're certainly happy to have those discussions. I know that there's been some issues around potentially the extent of Kingshurst Way that we're very happy to look at and take forward if it is something that is approved tonight. But importantly, as was highlighted by the two speakers, we also recognise that there are a number of other schools where there are school-related parking concerns and issues, which potentially at the moment our school streets type initiative wouldn't be suited for. Now, at the moment, our school streets model is based around a prohibition of driving, which is a restriction which is enforceable only by the police. And whilst the police are supportive of the school streets initiative, enforcement can be an issue because it requires a police officer, not a PCSO, to be present to issue a fine. And with the priorities that the police have, that can be a challenge. Now, the government essentially are looking at the enforcement of what we call moving traffic offences, which is this type of offence, and there are currently active proposals to actually decriminalise and to transfer those powers, or offer the ability to transfer those powers to local government, similar to the decriminalisation of parking, which took place a number of years ago. Whilst that will come forward over the next sort of 18 to 24 months, it is still some way off. And recognising that schools and residents are experiencing problems now, we feel it's appropriate that we widen the School Streets initiative to look at how we can introduce potentially other measures which we have greater levels of control at sites that wouldn't be suitable for a School Streets type initiative. And that's why we've recommended Granborough as one of the two sites that we'd like to see come forward as a pilot of a widening of the school streets brand, to try and address some of the concerns that have been identified and raised by those local communities over a number of years, as Councillor Tilsley highlighted within our report. The other location being Lawnswood Avenue, and these are two locations where we consistently receive complaints and concerns from the local community about the impact of school-related traffic. Now, the form of those interventions could be varied, but will be developed in consultation and in partnership with those communities that are being affected. So absolutely, the type of restrictions that Councillor Tilsley has set out within his report will be the type of thing that we'll be looking to take forward and introduce. They'll all be subject to statutory consultation, and hopefully at the end of it we'll be in a position where in the current financial year we're able to implement a meaningful intervention. So just going back to the recommendations from this report, it's obviously to seek your approval to roll out school streets at the 4 new sites that have been identified in 2.1 Part B, to also introduce the recommendations around Granborough Drive and Lawnswood Avenue, but also we're seeking some advice and guidance on the branding of that second phase of the school streets. And we've introduced a number of, or set out a number of suggestions in section 4.16 of the report that the Cabinet member and members may wish to consider for the branding of our school streets initiative. I'm happy to take any questions that yourself or members may have.
Yeah, thanks for that, David. I've got Councillor Thomas wishes to speak, and then Councillor Cole. I don't know whether you saw the chat function, Jean. If you want to come in afterwards, do so. Councillor Thomas.
Got a couple of bits and pieces that I want to pick up on this one, so sorry this takes a little bit of time. First point I wanted to make, or suggestion I wanted to make, and I'm afraid this does potentially impact what you're asking to improve. I think I'm aware that we have been approved £2 million worth of money for road safety improvements around the HS2 link. So I suppose my question or suggestion is, could the Borsall Common, first of all, could the Kingshurst Way Yorkswood Primary be funded through that money? Because I believe that's very close to the HS2. Could we also look to fund potentially Borsall Common Primary in Meriden through that scheme of funding? And I suppose my thoughts being that, and I don't know how close Windy Arbour is also to HS2, whether that would go that way. And if we could fund those 3 schemes from that money, then potentially that opens up the potential initially to do Borsall Common Primary as an additional, but also Shirley Heath Juniors and possibly even Yew Tree Primary. So it allows us to stretch the scheme more and do more schools and deliver the benefit to more people. So I suppose that was point 1 or suggestion 1. Is that something we could explore so that we get more benefit? Second one, obviously fully in support of Granborough Drive. I think I spoke in favour of it, and I think that's actually where, while I was talking about that, that's when I actually had the idea about the Kent's Close scheme. But actually I want to ask something different on the Kent's Close scheme, if that's okay. So the problem around Alton Primary School, yes, it affects Kent's Close. Yes, it affects that cul-de-sac on Linden Road. But actually the problem's much, much, much wider than that. So can I ask, given that we've already got a traffic regulation order approved, carried over from 2021 for Linden Road and Chapelfields Road, that we look to use that in conjunction with the school street scheme for Kent's Close, and in effect put it into the same category as Granborough Drive and Lansdowne Avenue, and put it into the expanded scheme, so that we're actually not just tackling the problem in Kent's Close and in the cul-de-sac on Linden Road, but we're tackling the wider issues that affect streets like Linden Road, Butler Avenue, Eastbury Drive, Chapel Fields Road, Blaythorne Avenue, where residents, and a list of the issues that we've had caused has been blue lighted vehicles getting stuck in Linden Road, the bus getting stuck down Chapel Fields Road and taking about 10 minutes for the street to be unblocked. We've had people in Eastbury Drive complaining that the parking would have prevented a fire engine getting through in the event of an emergency, and I would concur with that. I have seen that situation myself. A vehicle parked across someone's drive, so they were unable to attend a dialysis appointment on Linden Road. Vehicles parked on the junction of Butler Road in such a way as to prevent visibility for turning vehicles turning out onto Linden Road. So I suppose what I'm really asking for is if we could get double yellow lines installed on the junctions of Chapel Fields Road, Richmond Road, Eastbury Drive and Ulleries Road, Blaythorne Avenue and Eastbury Drive, Linden Road and Butler Road, just to prevent all parking on junctions where it's obviously hazardous. Also had complaints about people on Eastbury Drive on that junction parking across the disabled drop curve, therefore preventing disabled people from actually using it. Also to ask to extend the double yellow lines at the junction of Barn Lane and Linden Road to the drive of 212 Barn Lane, and that's they just stop a bit abruptly and it's a bit of a shock to drivers coming around the corner to that. And then
sorry, Councillor, this isn't the meeting to request traffic regulation orders and double yellow lines. This isn't the meeting for this, and we can't just do that off the hoof.
Right.
There has to be there has to be a submitted request, and I already said that the issue of TROs will come to this decision session probably in November.
So there is an existing approved TRO for this particular part of Linden, and the request is to use that in conjunction, and instead of just doing the school skid street scheme for Kent's Close, is to in effect put it in the expanded school streets scheme, so that it not only wraps up the school streets bit for Kent's Close, but also the regulations, potentially using the funding we've already got for the approved TRO to deliver a scheme that addresses the whole problem and not just the specific problem on one street in the cul-de-sac. That's where the request comes from. It is something that I have spoken with Paul Tovey at length about. And a lot of the suggestions that I was listing there are things that we have run through. So that's what the ask is. Not specifically a new TRO. I agree with you. That's due to come up in November. Do you want me to carry on through the list, or do you want me to?
Oh, there's more. Yeah, please, because you've just been speaking a few minutes already. So.
Yeah. Okay. Very quickly. Last bit. Single yellow lines. One side of the road. School opening times only. Butler Road, Eastbury Drive, Blaythorne Avenue to the end of the open area. Possibly some H bars on the opposite side of the road to remind people that parking across drives is not appropriate behaviour. And a solution for the middle of Chapel Fields Road that allows some residential parking, but prevents the bus from getting stuck again. So that's pretty much what I'm looking for. And again, similar to Grandsborough Drive, it's not necessarily about stopping parking on this one, but it's about encouraging people to park considerately, so the residents no longer have to suffer the problems of not being able to get out their streets, not being able to get out their drives, emergency vehicles getting stuck, the bus getting stuck. So that's what I'm asking. Could we push this into the expanded school street scheme, potentially use the funding from the TRO that we've already got to support the increased funding that would drive, and therefore provide a much more comprehensive solution than the one currently proposed?
Yeah. So I'll ask David to respond to that first.
Yep, that's quite all right. Thank you, Councillor. If we can just touch on the HS2 Road Safety Fund comment first. Unfortunately, the HS2 Road Safety Fund is set out for a specific number of roads. So we've identified around about 100 kilometres of public carriageway, and I can send a link to our website which sets that out and also is inviting feedback from the public at the moment. So very happy. Borsal Common, yes, potentially could be included as part of a future phase of that if there were asks that came forward, and certainly I'd urge any councillors or residents interested in promoting that as something to be funded through the HSD Road Safety Fund, to log onto the website and to register that, so it can be considered as part of that consultation process. Unfortunately, Yorkswood falls outside, so wouldn't be something we could progress. In terms of your comments regarding that Kent's Close and the expanded school streets project, I think that what we are seeking to establish at Alton is a holistic approach. We've got 3 TROs coming forward in that location. So we've got, obviously, as part of the planning decision, which is going to take place tomorrow, we have the zebra crossing and the amendments associated with the traffic regulation order for that, if that comes forward. We also have the school streets for Kent and for the cul-de-sac location, which we're discussing now. And we've also, as you've rightly highlighted, got a legacy project from 2020-2021, which is the traffic regulation order from last year. What our intention is to develop these in a holistic manner. I'd like to see the traffic regulation orders for Chapelfields for Linden Road it will pick up the issues and the locations that you've identified as part of that that list that you identified, in the roads that you were identifying were exactly the type of roads that we've already starting to map out on a plan and would like to see come forward. Ideally, that would come forward as part of a condition on the planning application, which I know you'll be talking about tomorrow. But if that doesn't, we've got it as a placeholder there, ready to progress anyway. It's likely that school streets will come forward slightly after that, because if you read within the report, the timescales for implementing a school streets project is slightly longer than traffic regulation order. If they dovetail in together, great, but I don't want to hold back the traffic regulation orders around Linden Road to tie in with the school streets, because I know residents would like to see that come forward as quickly as possible. So absolutely, we'll be doing it in a holistic approach. I don't think it's necessary to physically pull it out into that kind of school streets 2 branding package. It's something we'll already be doing with that holistic approach, knowing that there's lots of strands that are going to come together and hopefully dovetail into a nice enhancement for the local community there.
Brilliant.
Okay,
and
yeah.
obviously that's what I'm trying to achieve. Sorry, Ken.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Cole, David.
Thank you, Cabinet Member. Great to see that Yorkswood School and Kingshurst Way are going to be dealt with. I've stood on the corner outside that school many times and had heart attacks virtually. I've been having nightmares about this area, and I'm really glad that we're going to actually do something about it. So really pleased with that, and in full support of it. However, I do think we've sold ourselves slightly short, and David knows this. I think that to the north of it, we should also include Haslaw Road. It's only 20 metres extra, and it makes a whole lot of sense to me. A lot of parish councillors from Kingshurst are in support of this, and if we could just include Haslaw Road, be the icing on the cake. So really happy with that. Also, you're looking about another name for school streets. I think it's a well-known marketable thing, and we should keep it at school streets, issue 4, 5 and 6. We all know what it is, and the schools know what it is. Why reinvent the wheel? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, David. David, do you want to
Yes,
answer about Haslaw Road?
Absolutely. We're very, as we've spoken about this previously, we're very happy to look at the detail of the specific extents as we come forward with the prior to the formal consultation. So yeah, happy to have that conversation, Councillor, and if it's supported, we can look to extend it. We just need to consider, as we spoke about previously, the implication on traffic moving around the wider area, but yeah, happy to have that conversation and expand it that additional distance if
Yeah, it does make sense to me, Dave, because children are coming out of school and the entrance isn't that far from Haslaw Road, and it's another junction for them to cross. And to me, it seems absolutely silly not to include that junction. You're only talking of 20 metres. That's neither here nor there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. It's one facet about this is a consultation, and it is there is a chance to ability to tweak this here and there. Yeah, Councillor Hamilton, Jean, welcome.
Thanks very much, Cabinet Member. Yes, I haven't actually got anything to add here, just to say that I'm very happy to support the recommendation and to support the comments and the suggestions that have been made. If that's if you're happy with that, thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jean. It's in relation to this, I mean, the school streets was started off a few years ago by my predecessor, Councillor Richards, and also it's a great initiative, really promoted by our officers who've really been quite well groundbreaking, certainly in England with this, and then when you mentioned the award winning, and I thought what award was that? And of course, and I was there. I was there with David to go down to I think it was Savoy, to collect the School Streets Award. I forget the prince who gave us our award.
Prince Michael of Kent. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. And and it's a fantastic concept. Yes, there are issues with enforcement, but notwithstanding that, it has been a great success, and I'm really keen on extending this as wide as we can. And I know I've said this a few times now this last year or so. Once we do, as a local authority, get these extra powers from moving of traffic offences, not that I want to summons everybody and give tickets to everybody. I want to stop it. But I think as soon as we get those powers, it will help us make our borough around the schools, our schools, even safer. And first, because also can I thank officers for looking into the wider issues, especially about Granborough Drive and Lawnswood, and those are the starting for 10 really. I hear what you say, Councillor Thomas, about Alton. I mentioned that myself, Alton Primary School, but I think there has to be wider consultation about a few of these things before they come to a report for consideration. But I think the market is down there for other schools and other wards and other councillors and residents to think about how our measures can help shape their neighbourhood. And if there aren't any more speakers, I'll just ask out of courtesy, Mr. Oakley and Councillor Tilsley, if you're happy at the moment what we've heard.
Yeah,
Madam Member, as I say, I'm very, very grateful for the report, all the work that's been done. I think we're moving forward, but it is absolutely clear the 2:30 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, Monday to Friday, have to go hand in hand with what you're proposing. But that's very helpful.
Yeah. I hear what everybody says about schools, and it's a problem, right across the board. I still think ours is a special case because we have 3 schools, 3 roads opening onto Whitefields Road. So we're talking there is 2,500 children, all coming out within the space of 15 minutes. And as much as we have yellow lines, that's what Councillor Thomas said, but the parents not interested in them. They've just parked there. And their children are their pride and joy. So in some cases, there's got to be other forms. We've got a school complex there, but we've provided no car parking for what was 4 schools and a college. The college has got all the parking, but they want to be separate from everybody else. So if we move them from our road, I know it's going to push it down the line to somebody else, and it's going to keep going on. So we need a solution around that large school complex, to sort something out really. And it is going to take some big decisions to do that, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you very much, Colin. Thank you. And I'll move on to decisions now, and Paragraph 2, I'm asked to note the current position of the existing school streets locations, and B, approve the introduction of 4 new school streets in the following locations: Kent Close, Northland Road, Woodland Way Part, and Kingshurst Way Part. And C, note the proposal to extend School Street's brand, approve the new project name, which to be decided on, and agree the appropriate measures that are introduced, subject to statutory TROs, consultation process at Cranborough Drive Estate and Lawnswood Avenue. Okay, can I thank you, Colin, and Councillor Tilsley for your interest and your deputations. Certainly thank officers, and also thank Councillors Stuart Davis and Angela Sanderson for their interest as well. Obviously checking up on me. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that all. Now we go on to item 4, cycle training in Solihull, and I presume it might be Marie leading on this.
Councillor Hawkins, I'll do the introduction, and I'm delighted to introduce Marie Healy with the new members of the team that's picking up leading on that service area, and it's really great to be able to bring you such a positive report around cycle training. I'm sure members are aware that cycling is right up there on the government's agenda at the moment. Sustainable transport ticks a number of boxes, from health and well-being to air quality and the sustainable transport, which is really good. Joe, I've got a couple of slides. I think it'd be grateful if you could just put them up for me. I can't recall a previous report coming to a cabinet session on the cycle training service, or what's known as the bikeability service these days. It's had various names over the years, but it's certainly we were trying to rack our brains in the team, see how long it's been going. But we think cycle training started about 50 years ago in Solihull, when it was first called the Cycle Proficiency Test, and it's gone on various iterations since then, and we're now governed through the Department of Transport grant-funded stream, which is administered by the Bikeability Trust. The report today looks at two elements of it, and that's the bikeability training scheme that's been delivered at levels 1, 2 and 3. The council has its own team of trainers, and they go out into the schools across the borough, mainly dealing with year 5 and 6 children, to actually teach them how to ride safely on the highway network, and it gives them that lifelong skill that then encourages them to travel sustainably going forward. The second part of the report looks at the what's called the Recognised Delivery Centre, and that's our own in-house training facility to train the trainers. And not only have we been training our own staff, we've also been fortunate to train some neighbouring authority staffs as well, as part of that regional approach to delivering best value. Joe quickly just nipped onto the second slide for me. Thank you. A couple of great examples, and I must admit it's one of those services that I get some really positive feedback from parents of how their children have really enjoyed seeing their children develop in such a short space of time, because the courses generally last about a week, and it's great to see that they've got those skills in such a short space of time. And I'm sure that people don't appreciate the numbers of children, so I've just put on that slide there. Back in 2017-18, we did over 4,000 training children came through the courses. 18-19, we did 6,000. 19-20, back to 4,500. Unfortunately, obviously, last year with the COVID year, it was significant disruption, and we didn't get out there very much. This year already, pleased to report that we've spent and committed over £66,000 worth of training funding and delivered that to 2,300 children. We've had some more excellent news from the Department of Transport that they're investing in this work stream, and they've increased the funding that we can draw down, the maximum funding, up to £235,000 this year. And through that, we'll see 7,000 or 8,000 children this year completing the cycle training courses. But what we want to do is more than just children. What we want to do is get out there and start offering training to a wider group of community, certainly the family, adults, those in need of transport to jobs and employment as well. So what we don't offer at the moment is that wider training course. We've got some capacity within the team, but we haven't got a mechanism to charge for it. So this report today is seeking your approval to set up that mechanism of charges. And one in particular is around, it's quite easy to drop out of the school training courses at the moment because they've got a number of other priorities. we don't want the schools to miss out. But we do think it might be appropriate, along with other areas that have introduced a cancellation fee. It just covers parts of the courses and just makes the school think about the priorities and the importance of travelling by bike going forward in the rest of their life. I think it's probably pertinent just to pause there and give members an opportunity to ask any questions around the service. But if I can't answer them, I'll certainly bring Marie in. Probably missed out pointing out that Appendix A in the report sets out the full scale of charges that we're looking to introduce. And then that, if approved today, will just go forward in the normal fees and charges process that goes through the Resources Directorate. Cabinet Member, happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And again, it's something I'm keen on. You know, I think cycling now is almost akin to it's a motorcycling. There's a skill to ride in a safe manner. And if we're going to expect more and more people to cycle and help motivate people to cycle on our routes that we're rolling out, I think the training and allowing people to learn to ride again in a safe environment will only serve to help them cycle in a safe manner, both for them and for other road users. Do we have any questions on this, members? Catherine, and then Jean, and then David. Thank you.
Couple of bits from me. Just a suggestion regarding the secondary schools and uptake on the level 3 cycling required, and the fact that they're struggling. I don't know whether the best to fit it in with the curriculum, whether the way around that is to maybe see if it can be offered as an optional after school or maybe on Saturdays. Just a suggestion. Main question was just around, okay, we've secured funding for 21-22, but obviously this is a scheme that I think we're looking to continue over a number of years. So do we have funding to support this in 2022, 2023 and ongoing, or is this going to come to a crashing halt in a year's time because we don't have the funding? And other than that, to say, obviously both my children have done bikeability sessions with, I'm sad to say, not much success at the moment. Neither of them are greatly proficient with the bike. I think my eldest daughter will gain the benefit of hopefully the five sessions this year, which will be fantastic, and maybe it'll get her over the line to being able to cycle competently. And I do love the idea of the holiday courses, because it's certainly something that I would certainly look to get both of my children engaged in, because I think they could do with the extra support. And I think it's really important that children learn to cycle, because I know how important to me as when I was young, a bike was as a means of transport to go places with my friends. So I'm really keen to see my children learn and gain a similar level of competency. And I did learn through the school. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If you take the comments first from Jean and then David, and then Paul can wrap up then. Jean.
Yeah, I agree with Catherine's comments there. Really, my own children did the cycling proficiency tests, and they do a lot of cycling now from choice, just as leisure activity. I think we do need to support the expansion of cycling training and beyond the schools as well. And I welcome that this recommendation. And charging does make sense, but just one thing I would add, it would be good if we had some system to make the lower cost training available in certain circumstances, as it's not everyone that can afford it. So that's just one point I would like to make as well. At the moment, we've been talking about what's being done in the schools with this. I do sometimes wonder whether or not the children on those streets at the moment on the roads are sort of forgetting it a little bit. I mean, I'm noticing electric scooters being with two 8-year, 5, 6, 7 age children on it down the middle of the road. It's as if it's gone out the window. So I'm not terribly comfortable with what's happening with our electric scooters. So I definitely think that there's a real need, and we're going to increase our confidence on our bikes and our safety on our bikes as well. Speaking to somebody who delivers cycling lessons in the borough, I know from speaking to him that he was saying he actually delivers lessons to quite a lot of people from outside the borough, outside Solihull, and I wondered if we've got any, if it was going to be restricted to Solihull residents. And also another question would be, what's the target for the number of lessons and sessions to be delivered? I'm going to be very interested to see what the take up is. So, you know, is it just for Solihull residents? And what's the number of lessons and sessions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you, Cabinet Member. Basically, I've no problem with charges. I'm just looking at them now. But one of the questions I did want to ask, there are quite a few disadvantaged families in certain areas. I won't name those areas, but you know, even the smallest charge is a lot for a family. You know, if they've got 2, 3, 4 children, and they're having to go to the food bank to get food. What do we do to encourage these families? I mean, I don't want to see these children losing out. It is an issue, and it's an issue we've got to face. And I'd like to know, what can we do in these circumstances on charges? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. You just commented. I think there's a few of you that commented on things that I was going to have a look at, because it brings into its scope, you know, like how obviously there's a certain number of schools who are involved in our bikeability, and there's some aren't. And how do we engage those schools that aren't, so the young people can learn? And where do our bike hubs fit into this? Because our bike hubs, I think we've got 3 bike hubs: Elmdon, Shirley, I think, or it's certainly in Solihull, Elmdon and Babs Mill. Where do they have bike hubs? Because I think they were set up to do some sort of community training. And obviously, if somebody can answer those questions.
Thank you, Cabinet Member. I'll try my best, but the social inclusive one might be a bit of a challenge that we need to take away and have a look at for you. But picking up Councillor Thomas's questions first, yeah, we're keen to get into level 3 at senior schools, particularly with the transition year last year missing out. So I know the team with Marie will be working hard to try and plug that gap, but we are also aware that their curriculum is very tight. Your idea about after school and weekends will be explored, and school holidays as well. I just wanted to pick up that general point. Children won't lose out as a result of the charging. Those charges don't apply to children. The school funded places are funded through the £235,000 that we get through the Bikeability Trust. So that group to the schools year 5 and 6s and above is funded. What we're looking at putting charges in for is those additional recreational classes that we can see if there's a market out there. At the moment, we're not sure there is a market. We've got a booking system now that's come online with our new tool. We'll be out there promoting it and trying to encourage a take up. But at the moment, there's no performance indicators on those targets yet. We're just trying to see what interest there is out there from the community. And we'll certainly be marketing it out through our social media channels to try and encourage take up. I think, as I said, the social inclusive element at the moment, we're going to have to take that away and have a look at to see what options there are out there. There are certain funding streams that might be able to fund places for those families that want to come forward, but just stress that the children are covered through the school placement costs anyway, so they won't be charged. Whether they're inside or outside the borough, well, we're already delivering cycle training to numerous children who don't live in the borough because they're already at school in Solihull. If they come online on the website, I don't think we'll be excluding anybody from outside the borough, but the courses will only be delivered in Solihull, so they'll have to travel to us to have that school. And I know Birmingham offers similar courses as well, so you might find that the Birmingham residents will go to Birmingham, but we'll only be delivering at school at locations in Solihull at the moment, so that may restrict certain people coming from outside the borough. Electric scooters, Councillor Hampton, you're quite right, it's becoming a growing problem. We've had a road safety campaign led through the Road Safety Partnership out there, trying to raise awareness of some of the risks. But I would just remind members that it's actually illegal to use electric scooters on the highway at the moment. That's the legislation hasn't changed. We're certainly not providing any courses or training for electric scooters as part of this funding stream. And I know there's a fair bit of education going on through social media, trying to point out where they can and can't use their electric scooters safely. I think that's covered most of the questions. Councillor Hawkins, did I cover your last point? about.
Even I'm trying to.
I think it was around the social inclusion and making sure that we don't miss out the children there through the charges. That's certainly not our intention, and we'll certainly be looking at that as the demand comes forward. Point out we haven't got a bottomless pit of trainers. That we've only got a relatively small group. We're up to about 24 at the moment, so we'll only be able to deliver enough courses that the 24 can manage. So that's the sort of resource pot that we've got at the moment, and then we'll come back with regular updates to see how we can grow that in line with the other work that we're obviously doing through the Active Travel Fund to bring infrastructure improvements along the network as well. So that's the overall plan. And I think that's probably covered most of the points for you. Happy if you could consider the recommendations of the report, Cabinet Member.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and thank you, officers, for progress in this. Because I say it ties in with all our objectives. We want more and more people to cycle. It helps our modal shift plans, and it helps people's healthy lifestyles as well. But it's also important that people do so safely for themselves and for the protection of other road users. I'll move on to the recommendations now. At number 2A, I note the update on the cycle training service. B, I approve the fees and charges for the cycle training service, not funded by the trust, as set out in Appendix A. C, I approve increasing the RDC course fees for the instructor training as set out in Appendix A, and note that if these charges are approved, they will become effective as soon as the decision is confirmed. The issue will then refer to the Council's annual fees and charges review process. And thank you very much for that, Paul and Marie. Thank you. Can we next go on to, I think the last one, that'll be you again, Paul, I presume, petition summary.
It is, Cabinet Member. Thank you very much. Yes, the usual update on petitions received since the last meeting, which have there been 3. The first petition looks at parking in Brookfield Way. That was presented by Mr. Foster on behalf of the residents of Brookfield Way. The report sets out that we've had a look at it in the area there. Again, it's another school predominantly related parking problem. The options are set out in the report around at this stage. We may want to do nothing, look at school streets, look at changing the parking restrictions. There's nothing there that's compelling, changing, urgent need. And overall, we recommend that this should be referred through to the TRO prioritisation process that, as you asked in the chat, is due to come to your November decision session, where we were looking at the total number of requests, which I suspect will be in the region between 120 and 130 again this year, and we'll have the difficult charge of prioritising those requests. Any questions on that particular issue? Happy to take them. No,
none. Appears to be none.
The second petition we've already covered through Dave's School Streets Update report. That was a petition submitted by Councillor O'Niens at the full council on the 6th of July. That related to Kent's Close and the parking conditions in there. Councillor Thomas has already picked up, and we've committed with Dave's team to do that holistic review, which includes Kent's Close and the roads around there as well. So the recommendation is to refer to that process. I presume members have an approach.
Yeah, that's agreed. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The third and final petition is an unusual one. Yes, a bit of an unusual one. It's been around for a number of years. I've been aware of this. This is a bit of a parking problem at the end of Hay Lane that was closed off when the 834 Stratford Road was dual carriageway back in the 1980s. The report actually mentions the A3400. It's actually the A34 at that point. And over the years, there's been reports of antisocial behaviour, parking in the 2 turning heads at the end. Our recommendation is most unlikely that will ever come forward in the TRO prioritisation process. And as a potential quick win, we're recommending that we put 2 H markings down on that particular 2 clear markings down in the turning area, just to help raise awareness and try and encourage parking either further into the close, which is less obstructive to the residents at the air, and hopefully encourage the antisocial behaviour that goes on there to go elsewhere, not outside some of the residents' properties. I think that's a reasonable approach on that particular issues out there. Happy to take any questions on it.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. As a ward member there, it's I do think that's the appropriate, effective way forward. Because again, like a lot of these cases, it's that displacement is where the people who park, and to be honest, I think some of the issues there have been because of the development, the care home and the other development going on down there. But I think that is an appropriate way for that. Catherine, you had your hand up.
One question actually on the Brookfield Way petition. Actually, I noticed that this particular school, or Langley Secondary School, I think was considered for the School Street scheme, but it was considered for Kinnerton Green Road and not Brookfield Way. Could I just ask why? And would Brookfield Way have, if that had been assessed instead, would it have succeeded or got a higher score through the School Street scheme?
I think Brookfield Way suffers from both the junior and the infants, and the infants and senior school parking at times. It's right between the two. It wasn't considered because it's a through estate. It's not just the cul-de-sac. The through estates, of course, are problem for school streets at the moment, so it wouldn't have fared as equally as Granborough Drive and Lawnswood. I appreciate Lawnswood is a through estate, but it's almost one way in and out from the Radborough Road estate. That's where we're looking at the moment. So we still think that primary school offers better fit to the school catchment zone, where there's potential for the people to walk to those smaller catchment zones. The Langley Senior School's got a huge catchment zone, many coming from Birmingham as well. So I don't think it would have fared if we'd have had a look at it from that perspective angle at the moment. But I think the recommendation, the TRO process is the right one at this stage.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I'll go on to the recommendations then, and in two, I won't read them actually. In 2A, B, and C, and D, I agree to the recommendations contained therein. Thank you. I think that concludes our meeting, and thank you very much, officers, for your input. Thank you, councillors, and thank